What if I told you everything you believed to be true about Jim Jones's life was actually false? Mama Jones is finally coming out with the truth, and it's absolutely astounding. The questions you've been asking for years are why Jim's life spiraled out of control, why there was betrayal, and why there was chaos. Get ready, because Mama Jones just revealed the answers, and I promise you won't believe who did it all. Jim's downfall was actually only the result of a startling new revelation. Mama Jones is outlining everything, and what she's saying is nothing short of explosive. What were Chrissy and Cameron doing behind closed doors that led to Jim's public humiliation? And how deeply did they plot against him? Chrissy, Cameron, and Jim's closest friends and family members actually set out to destroy Jim's empire from the inside. Does the web of betrayal continue? The truth is more sinister than anyone could have ever guessed. It's not just a few poor choices. It's a full-fledged conspiracy. Prepare yourself, because you're going to hear the untold story, and you won't look at Jim Jones the same way again. Stay tuned, because the truth is going to hit you harder than you think. All right, let's break down, because the truth you're about to hear is going to rock the foundations of everything you thought. Mama Jones has finally spoken out after years of watching the devastation unfold. But believe me, isn't just another family drama. What we're dealing with is a betrayal so deep and intricate that it's almost hard to believe it's real. Jim Jones has been a controversial figure for years, going through public feuds, controversial decisions. And let's not forget his undeniable influence in the rap game. But the question has always been how someone so strong and self-assured ended up in the mess he is in today. If you have been following the drama, you are already familiar with the names that keep coming up when Jim's life falls apart. Chrissy and Cameron. You may be wondering, what's new? But the truth is, people, Mama Jones is now to spill the real tea. There has been a mystery surrounding Jim's demise for years. His public humiliation, career setbacks, and relationship problems were all too much to ignore. But Mama Jones is making the connections. And when she does, she presents an unflattering picture. Did Chrissy and Cameron truly betray Jim to the point of no return? Mama Jones says that they did, but what's the real story? The depth of this conspiracy is even more terrifying. It goes beyond simple jealousy or miscommunications and is about power, control, and the brutal lengths people will go to fully comprehend the seriousness of this revelation. To fully comprehend the significance of this revelation, we must take a moment to reflect on the years when Jim's empire was thriving and he had everything he needed, including loyalty. We all know that Chrissy Lynn has always been a divisive figure in the public eye, and that she has never been shy about her opinions, especially when it comes to Jim's friends and associates. But what if her actions weren't just about personal gain? Mama Jones claims to have witnessed it all firsthand, having watched as Jim's closest friends and family members pulled strings behind his back. The latest revelations from Mama Jones paint a picture of someone who is obsessed with control and would not hesitate to manipulate and destroy get what they want. Then there is Cameron, a name that, let's face it, has always carried a lot of weight in the streets as a major figure in the rap scene. Cameron built his own empire. But Mama Jones charges that they were part of a larger scheme to destroy Jim. It's easy to think of these relationships as just drama for the tabloids. But what if there's more to the story than what has been reported? She claims that behind the scenes, Cameron's motivations were never as pure as they appeared for years. He's been playing a dangerous game, and his ultimate goal, well, let's just say that it wasn't Jim Jones's success. It's planned, but before we go into the details of how they did it, let's take a moment to consider the possibility that the people Jim trusted the most were the ones driving him towards self-destruction. Mama Jones isn't just talking about trivial matters. It's revealing the truth about how Chrissy and Cameron purposefully manipulated Jim's circumstances for their own gain. Trust me, the more you look into this, the more astounding it becomes. Understand why it's so important. Jim Jones is not just any celebrity. He is a mainstay in the rap industry, a man who has influenced culture and a respected figure. As such, you can bet that there will be serious repercussions if someone close to him begins to pull strings behind the scenes. But here's the thing. Wasn't just about business. It was about relationships, loyalty, and betrayal at the highest level. Jim Jones believed that everyone around him had his back, including Chrissy and Cameron, as well as those in his inner circle, whom he trusted with everything. However, what Mama Jones reveals next will fundamentally alter your perspective on these relationships, as she asserts that Cameron was a major factor in stoking the flame between Jim and Chrissy, and that it wasn't just a matter of drama or egos, working behind the scenes, sowing doubts, causing chaos, and spreading rumors. What was his ultimate goal? To undermine Jim, establish his own empire? Or was there something more sinister at play here? Mama Jones keeps dropping bombshells that claim Cameron was genuinely setting himself up to replace Jim. But how does that relate to Chrissy's involvement in all of this? Mama Jones has a theory that Chrissy is motivated by a desire to Cameron manipulated her for power and control. But it was more than that. Chrissy, feeling more and more excluded from Jim's life and career, was pressured to make choices that would destroy the foundation Jim had established. By now, it's obvious that isn't just a straightforward love triangle or a disagreement over friendship. Rather, it's a well-planned plot that has been going on for years. But here's the twist. Mama Jones claims as we piece together the puzzle, we begin to realize how intentional and malicious this betrayal really was. Mama Jones wasn't just watching her son's life fall apart from the sidelines. She was witnessing the destruction of everything Jim had worked for at the hands of people he trusted. The damage wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. Every move Chrissy and Cameron made was part of a larger plan to gradually destroy Jim's empire. Mother Jones's voice broke the silence like a storm, carrying with it years of unspoken hurt, betrayal, and anger. As she started to speak, the truth spilled out, revealing a side of the story that had never been fully told. It wasn't just about family matters anymore. It was about loyalty, trust, and the extent of this conspiracy. So the question is, how long will Jim stand by and let this happen? People always assume they know what's happening behind the scenes because they see the glitz and glamour. But they don't see the battles that go on in the shadows. Chrissy, Cameron, and Jim were all entangled in something that turned ugly, and it's time the world knew the real story. Mama Jones started off her remarks steadily but passionately, to delve deeper into the web of deception, manipulation, and treachery that had ripped Jim's life apart. Jim and Cameron were once like brothers, supporting one another through thick and thin. But somewhere along the line, things changed, and Cameron grew distant, trapping Jim in the middle. Then Chrissy entered the picture with her own agenda, and that's when everything began to fall apart. Mama Jones stopped for a second. Her face, Jim would come home and tell me that things were getting tense with Cameron and that they were no longer on the same page. Chrissy would always have something to say about it, as if she was trying to drive a wedge between them. It wasn't just about Jim and Cameron anymore. It was about her control and her idea of what should be the case. I witnessed it all at first, in a mixture of pain and disbelief, as she went on to explain how Chrissy's manipulation gradually impacted Jim's relationships with everyone around him. The weight of her words struck hard. She wanted Jim to be everything she wanted him to be, but she was unaware that she was destroying him in the process. She didn't want him to be the man he once was. Instead, she wanted him to fit her idea of what the ideal man should look like. And in doing so, she began pushing away the when people start to change. Cameron doesn't just change. He starts to see Jim as a stepping stone, a way to advance in the game and secure his own position. When Chrissy entered the picture, it was like a perfect storm as they both began tugging at Jim from different directions. He wasn't always like this, Mama Jones muttered, shaking her head. He was a loyal friend once, but loyalty only goes so far. The pain in her voice was evident as she recalled the times when Jim's life started to spiral out of control. I remember seeing Jim sitting on that couch, just staring into space. He was a shell of the man he used to be. And it wasn't because of the music or the business. Rather, it was because of the people he trusted the most. Chrissy and Cameron. Everyone was trying to shape him into their idea of what he should be, but no one ever stopped to ask Jim what he wanted. It's taken everything from him piece by piece until he no longer recognized himself. Mama Jones wiped away a tear as she went on, and what hurt the most was that Jim didn't even see it coming because he was too consumed by his love for Chrissy and his friendship with Cameron to notice that they were planning against him and scheming behind his back, setting him up for failure. Mama Jones described how Cameron's relationship with Jim soured, how old wounds were reopened and new betrayals formed, and how Cameron began to distance himself not only physically but emotionally. He stopped checking in on Jim as he used to, and Chrissy was doing the same. It was evident now that the betrayal was not just about a romantic relationship, but about a long-standing friendship that had turned toxic. Jim's loyalty to his friends, family, and fans was being tested, and no one was there to tell him the truth or show him what was truly going on behind the scenes. So when it all hit the fan, he was the last to know, Mama Jones said, her voice trembling a little. She knew what she was doing, and she was controlling the situation without Jim even realizing it. With the weight of the truth, I couldn't keep quiet any longer after witnessing everything that had happened to Jim. It wasn't just about Jim anymore. It was also about the harm that Chrissy and Cameron had caused to him, to us, and to everything we had built together. Mama Jones' realization that Jim was not the same person she had known before, not simply because of the betrayal, but also because of his shifting behavior, was the pivotal moment. I'm his mother, and it pained me to see him like that. Mama, Jones went on, her voice steady but full of intense emotion. Jim was too good for me. I saw my son, the one I raised, the one I loved, becoming someone I didn't recognize. And it wasn't just the pressure from his career or the fame. It was also the people he had led into his life. People who didn't have his best interests at heart. The problem with loyalty is that it can be both your greatest strength and your downfall when the wrong people take advantage of it. Chrissy and Cameron were better at the game than anyone else. And they knew how to use Jim's love, trust, and loyalty to their advantage. In the end, Jim was the one who paid the price, and every day the weight of the betrayal grew more intolerable. I'm not doing this for fame or retaliation. I'm doing this because Jim deserves to know the truth, and the world deserves to know who Chrissy and Cameron really are. They believed they could destroy him and get away with it, but they underestimated one thing: family. As the tension increased and the drama developed, Mama Jones realized that the fight was on. It's far from over, but one thing was certain: she would not remain silent for Jim, her family, or herself any longer. The truth would finally come to light now that we had dismantled the lies that Chrissy and Cameron had woven. We must discuss the chaos that followed Jim Jones's life as it fell apart due to betrayal. This wasn't just a public split or a simple argument between This was the collapse of an empire that Jim had spent years building. But what happens when the people you trust the most end up pulling you down? Well, asked Jim. And what do we know about the fallout? First, according to Mama Jones, the emotional destruction wasn't merely for show. It struck Jim where it hurt him the most, as evidenced by the way his music career had begun to slow down. But it wasn't just due to age or changing trends. Rather, it was the harm done by his closest friends and family, who he believed had his back. According to Mama Jones, Chrissy and Cameron were working behind the scenes to make sure Jim would lose his favor, and the results were disastrous. Let's start with the legal ramifications as the full extent of the betrayal became clear. Jim's legal team became involved. It should come as no surprise that when someone with such a high profile is being attacked in this manner, legal action begins to take place. Mama Jones suggests that Chrissy and Cameron threatened to sue Jim, but not for the reasons you might think. It wasn't about personal slights or strained friendships. Rather, these lawsuits were part of a larger scheme to ensnare Jim in legal red tape, deplete his finances, and keep him in the dark. Mama Jones reveals that at one point, Jim was thinking about going public with a massive lawsuit of his own that would have exposed the truth about the shady dealings he claims Cameron and Chrissy were involved in. This would have brought the dirty laundry out into the open for the entire world to see. And what could have been more satisfying than that? This is where it gets really interesting. Jim hesitated, as Mama Jones explains, because he still thought Chrissy and Cameron were somehow redeemable. He didn't want to believe the worst about the people who had been closest to him. But Mama Jones, being the protective mother that she is, didn't have that luxury. She saw right through it. Jim was watching Cameron, the master manipulator himself, being forced to answer questions about his role in this whole mess. Jim Jones made his biggest mistake, and as we all know, hesitation kills careers. By the time he realized what was truly happening, the financial collapse had already occurred, but let's not forget about the money. When you've spent your entire life achieving success and someone comes along to ruin your reputation and relationships, the financial toll is unavoidable. Jim Jones didn't just lose personal relationships. While Jim was preoccupied with the drama, Chrissy and Cameron were surreptitiously arranging deals that siphoned off his wealth. Imagine being at the top of your game. Mama Jones reveals that Cameron and Chrissy were responsible for a significant portion of Jim's financial decline. She claims that they were pulling strings behind the scenes, causing Jim to make poor investments, take on bad business deals, and ultimately bleed money. That's what happened to Jim. His brand crashed, his ventures failed, and his assets were liquidated. It wasn't just a financial decline. It was a crash, and the two people he believed he could trust the most were responsible. Let's not sugarcoat it, though. Mama Jones claims that Cameron and Chrissy weren't innocent in and were planning Jim's demise. His financial stability had already been destroyed by the public backlash. However, the public backlash was the true monster, because, as we've seen in innumerable scandals, social media has a way of magnifying the rumors once they start. It was a media frenzy with everyone playing the blame game. But Mama Jones reveals that Chrissy and Cameron were far from innocent in the court of public opinion. They weren't just victims in the story. The public was divided, with some rallying behind Jim, believing that his entire career had been sabotaged, and others throwing their support behind Chrissy and Cameron, believing they had been wronged. Even more startling is how quickly public opinion changed, with people beginning to question Jim's every move. Was he really the villain in all of this? Did he deserve the backlash? Was he the victim? Or did he bring this upon himself? The public's erratic nature allowed them to manipulate their own narrative and feed the media machine with false information and half-truths to ensure that Jim took the brunt of the blame. Meant that Jim was rapidly being portrayed as a loser who couldn't manage his personal and professional lives. But Mama Jones won't accept that story. She maintains that Jim wasn't only the victim of personal betrayal, but also of a deliberate effort to damage his reputation. Finally, Mama Jones reveals that the true cause of the chaos wasn't just Chrissy and Cameron's egos. It was about control. Want to see Jim fail because they wanted to replace him? They were motivated by the need to destroy everything Jim had built so they could rise from the ashes. Cameron wanted to become the game's kingpin again, and Chrissy, well, she was just there to help him pull the strings. In the end, Jim's life was destroyed not by chance, but by a carefully thought-out plan by the people who said they cared about him the most. Don't blame Jim Jones for his current situation. Realize that there were people actively trying to bring him down. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the saddest truth of all. Now that we've discovered everything, the question is, what does it mean for Jim Jones? Is there any chance that he will recover from the damage that Chrissy and Cameron have left behind? Or is it too late for him to make a comeback? Mama Jones has spoken her mind. But do you think Jim will rise from the ashes? Or is his career doomed? Did Chrissy and Cameron ruin his life? Or did Jim just play right into their hands? Last but not least, Do you think there is more to the story? What are the hidden layers that we haven't even touched on yet? If you feel the gravity of this shocking truth and want to stay up to date, please leave a comment below. You won't want to miss any of the exclusive details that are about to surface because we're just getting started. You can bet that we'll be delving even deeper into this and uncovering more shocking facts that you won't hear anywhere else. Turn on your notifications so you don't miss the next bombshell that is about to be revealed. Remember that this isn't just gossip. This is about real lives. Start a discussion in the comments section below. Nobody in the scandal world remains silent long. So let's see who you believe is truly to blame for this mayhem. Leave a comment, subscribe, and keep checking back for the next shocking discovery that